Hello, hello.
Hey, hey.
What's up? What's up? How's it going?
Oh, pretty
You got
good.
new headphones, right?
Yeah, I actually got these on my way out to New York at the airport, but I don't usually use them because they're too good. You know, they block out all external sound and my voice sounds weird to myself. But my other headphone, as you know, just stopped working in the middle of our call this morning. So
Hey, Nassim, what's up? Hey, Minako, nice to see you. I actually feel my connection today is more terrible than usual. So
I would agree with that. Yep.
I'm a little bit tempted to. That's good. Let me try.
Why don't we all turn off video for Alessio's benefit?
Nah, I think it's about that really. I don't think that's about that.
This is great. The European internet is suffering lately due to the heavy amount of Netflixing and stuff. Did we all just freeze, or is it just me who's freezing?
I think it's just Alessio that froze, actually.
Yeah. So, how are you, Nico?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Mick.
Hello. You're in quarantine, so your beard is growing now.
I'm going wild during this World Cup. Let's see. In 1 month, I will be.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that.
I think we lost the fearless summoner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he dropped off. Doesn't. Let's see if we get him back in a minute or so.
Sure.
So in the meantime, anybody has some special announcements, like a new product they launched or anything interesting they worked on? I'm curious what people are up to.
All right. Well, I don't see Alessio back yet. Hopefully he will have his internet connection sorted out shortly. But welcome everyone to the third community call for PieDAO. I'll just kind of get started. We were scheduled to have a warm up and recap, which Alessio would give, but since he's not here, maybe we'll jump into the next agenda item and hope that he comes back to give that recap. So I'd love to introduce Thomas of Provable Things to talk about the PBTC model. He's our guest this week. Thomas, are you all connected to audio and ready to go?
I think we have Alessio back now, right?
Oh, Alessio's back. Okay.
Hello, guys. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. I was just taking over, waiting for you.
Hi.
Yeah,
sorry for being
about
late.
that. Like right now, my connection is terrible. Like unfortunately, Italy infrastructure for internet is not holding up very well. All right, guys. Sorry for the inconvenience in this regard. So welcome to the third community call. I'm gonna try to share my screen. I feel like my connection is pretty unstable today. If there is the case or about that, I will try to fix it. But can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Great. All right. So welcome again. My name is Alessio Del Monti, and this is the third community call. Today is March 27th. And as usual, we're going to start by sharing the agenda of this call. As you guys know, we've been following this format when we invite a guest, one of the call, sharing the coolest stuff in DeFi. And today we have a very cool guest, Thomas from the P-Token and Provable Things. Is gonna speak us about the technology behind PBTC and the way they are bridging tokens to the Ethereum network, which I'm very excited about, because following that presentation, I'm gonna make a small summary about BTC++, what we call the weighted allocation for Bitcoin for the Ethereum network. Following that, we're gonna have Nico, our awesome bearded designer over there, doing a small design showcase about the stuff he has been working on the past few weeks. And then following that, by the desire of some of the users in the PieDAO Discord, we've been working on a mock index Excel template that people can fork out and try their own allocation. So without any further ado, I'm gonna leave the word to Thomas. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Alessio, for the introduction and for having me here today. Can you please confirm that the audio connection is good and that you can hear me?
It's really good.
Okay, cool. I will share in a second some slides so that you guys can follow better like the presentation. Just give me 1 second. I will use like a different account. Could you connect it? Or yeah, just enable this.
Oh, Scoopy has the best image thing. What's up with that, Scoopy? That's pretty awesome.
Just doing the background for Zoom, and I found a way to sort of keep my pseudo-anonymity here.
Great. Share it with us at some point. So,
sorry guys, I'm having some issues to share the screen. Just 1 second, please.
Yeah, no problem. I'm also happy to see CryptoToit over here. Later today, after all the presentation, we are gonna share the final result for the first week meme competition. So stay tuned. All right, I think we see your screen.
Excellent. So that's not my screen, unfortunately, but it's still a screen I control, so we can start. I will spend like some minutes, as you anticipated, to discuss P-tokens and explain how they work. Then if we have some time, I will show a demo of the DApp. So P-tokens, as you said during the introduction, is a system for basically moving crypto assets across blockchains. This is something similar to what some projects have been doing that you guys may already know. For example, WBTC or IMBTC, RenBTC are some examples of some projects that do that for Bitcoin specifically. What we do with P tokens, as you will see in a second, applies to Bitcoin, but it can be used, and it is designed to be used with any asset on any blockchain, really. So one of the main feature is that basically it's designed to be really simple and thin. So it's not a very complex protocol. And the reason for this is that it's much easier to audit and to understand. And since it's a system that is meant to move liquidity around, we think it's very important not to have extra complexity in there. So it's not general purpose. It just works well for moving tokens around, and it just does that. So it doesn't provide any privacy, for example. It's not privacy preserving, and you can't really build anything else on top. One benefit of the model we follow that I will explain in a second is that it's not restricted to just the UTXO model. So things like TBTC that you may know, for example, they work well with UTX model, as you could challenge anything on chain in case it's needed. This is not a restrictions that P tokens have, for instance. So there are many projects that are like very solid, that have built incentive systems that work well for Bitcoin. The main goal of P tokens is to make that work for any asset. Not just towards Ethereum, but we could connect also, for example, Ethereum assets with the EOS blockchain, or with, any blockchain in principle. So as you see in this slide, it's not a synthetic asset. It's one-to-one pegged. So for every, I will mention PBTC for simplicity, but keep in mind that this could apply to any token. So in the case of PBTC, it's pegged one-to-one with, a real Bitcoin, and it can be redeemed by anyone for a real BTC. So it's a frictionless process. If we have time, I will show you in the DApp. You can, if you have a Bitcoin or a fraction of a Bitcoin, you can convert it into PBTC very quickly and back. On Ethereum, it looks like an ERC-777 token. So it's something that works well for, has extra features for example, delegating access to your token to a third-party DApp or things like that. It's a bit more flexible than the ERC-20 and safer. The contract we are using is based on the Open Zeppelin implementation, and it doesn't really, it's not much more complex than that. It's the base Open Zeppelin contract with a couple of extra functions, for example, to enable the redeem. While most of the logic is executed off-chain, and it has been security audited by Cryptonics at the moment. We'll also do other audits in the future, but the code base is like entirely written in Rust. It's open source, of course, and anyone can verify that the validators in the network are really executing this code. So this is something different than what most projects do, as most projects that have a decentralized network, they aim to basically be resistant against Sybil attacks, as it's very critical for them to ensure the malicious players don't overtake the network. Why? Because it's very simple for a normal like node to just alter their execution and execute something else that could be malicious. So overtaking the network is as simple if you don't have a good incentive system as basically controlling the majority of nodes and changing the node, the code the node is running. What we enforce via trusted computing is that basically each node must execute the latest version of the code. So as some of you may know, trusted computing by itself is not like is not a 100% guarantee that the code will be executed safely. We just use it together with a multi-party computation approach. So the idea is that basically we make it harder for each validator in the network to execute something different. It's not impossible, it's just way more expensive and complex than it is for like a normal validating node that you have, I don't know, on any other network basically. So we use those two technologies together, and the idea is that every validator has like a full node for the two blockchains you want to connect. So in the case of PBTC on Ethereum, the nodes must be running a full node for Bitcoin, a full node for Ethereum, and then they have the P tokens core system that is executed within a trusted execution environment that is acting sort of as a light client. So there is a light client executed within the enclave that basically enables the peg-ins and peg-outs, which is the conversion from Bitcoin to PBTC and back.
Excuse me, Thomas, just I want to interrupt 1 second because we have some questions in the chat, and then you tell me if you prefer to take it now or after the presentation, if you want to make this more interactive.
I can have a look at the questions, so just 1 second.
So we have a question from Scoopy asking, you know, what are the security, cryptographic, or crypto economic measures that are in place for PBTC?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think the best is probably to go to the next slide, and then I will like answer to those questions, as the answer is mostly in there.
All right, then let's do that. Let's keep following with the presentation, and then if there are some questions which are unanswered, maybe you know, anybody can feel free to inject and, you know, unmute themselves and make their own questions. Otherwise, we can keep it for later. I think you might have a lot of this question answered along the way.
Yeah, I mean, as you asked, I will try to like keep the presentation short. So in a couple of minutes, I will finish it, and then I will be able to take any question or to show you in practice how it works. Normally, it will take much longer to explain how everything works, so I'm going quite quickly. But feel free to ask questions, and I've seen some good ones already, so I will be answering those.
Great, I'm gonna let you speak right now.
Yeah, so thank you. So right now, to answer to the question of who holds the deposited Bitcoin. So what happens is that basically the Bitcoins that are pegged into the system are under the control of the validators of the network. And those validators need to run the validating code, which is P token score, within like a secure enclave. So you don't need to trust the enclave, but the enclave gives you some guarantees that you normally don't get, that each node is executing the code as intended. You can actually challenge each node at any time. So it's possible for anyone in the network to send a challenge request and say like to a node, please give me an updated attestation, meaning show me that the code that is running within the TE, according to whatever TE you're using, is really the one you are supposed to be running. This is not safe per se, it's not decentralized, but the aim is that if each node executes the code within trusted execution environment and the majority of the network agrees on what is being done, the system is both decentralized and it's like safer than normal networks which have a similar topology, as compromising the correct execution of the code is expensive. It's like if the use of the TE itself was equivalent to having like a higher cost to attack the system. Yet there is a bond. So a similar system such as REN, for example, have a bond in place. So you must put some tokens at stake. And one limitation of the system is that the amount of like Bitcoin, REN BTC in the case of REN, that you can issue must not exceed the total value of the collateral that each node has. This is a limitation, as otherwise it's not possible to be resistant for Sybil attacks. So basically you can take over the network. And to me, this is like a limitation that creates like an expectation for the price to go up, but it's not necessarily driven by the adoption. I mean, the token in theory should go up if the network gets used. At the same time, we don't really know how much people will be like pegging in and out. So there may be a scenario, for instance, where people just move Bitcoin over to Ethereum and it just always stays there. So in that case, the validators don't make any money. Yet you would expect the token to go up for the value of Bitcoins in the network to be safe, which is not an expectation that you have with P tokens. As with P tokens, other than a collateral, which is fixed and doesn't provide any capping for the security of the network, it's also expensive to attack the node, as basically this can be normally detected. What you will need to do in this in the network of P tokens to compromise the system is basically you will need to find some 0 days in trusted execution environments. You will need to be able to execute them in a controlled fashion and without breaking the attestation, which is something that normally happens. And you will need to do it on the majority of nodes at the same time in a synchronized way. So this is extremely complicated because you don't have just freedom to change the code as you would normally have, say on RAN or on other networks. To explain how we get there, since the project has just been started and it will be a progressive path towards decentralization. Right now, what we have is the core of the system that is basically running within a single enclave on a single node. So right now, it's not decentralized. You shouldn't use it if you are afraid of censorship resistance, as right now, there is no censorship resistance guarantee, as there is just one node. But the reason why we launched this now without the network in place is that we believe there is a strong need for something like this. And on mainnet, there are no projects yet that are live and provide similar level of guarantees. They are all sort of trusted. They have many open trust lines, and they don't provide strong guarantees that currently even a single validator is giving. Yet we know that it's important to move to a more decentralized phase, and we are working hard to get this component in place, which is what we call phase 1. So in phase 1, there will be a selected network of validators. We start like that just to be able, to upgrade the network initially in case it's needed and to ensure everything is safe while, the system evolves. And there will be a DAO. We call this network of validators the P network. So there will be a P network DAO, which is basically a smart contract that that can be used for deciding, for example, if the enclave code has to be updated, what code needs to be run, what kind of limitations should be in place, what happens to the fee, because the peg in and peg out fee right now is 0, but it could be increased if there is a desire to do so. So we are designing a token for this governance that is called PNT that will be used just for the governance of the system. So it's used basically to vote over the decisions that keep the P tokens and the P network safe. Yet it doesn't provide a capping to how much value you can issue in Bitcoin or with any other bridge, really. For example, we already have on testnet PBTC on EOS. So you see Ethereum is not necessarily central in this ecosystem. Ethereum is just the major chain where today DeFi is happening. And I think it will keep being like this. But P tokens in general and the P network are way more general purpose. They could be used to move, I don't know, assets on the liquid sidechain on EOS, or they could be used to move DAI on the liquid sidechain, or, it depends on the network. So here I have a slide that I will keep for some seconds because I think I don't have much more time, where all the actors in the P network are presented. If you have any interest in integrating with P tokens, they are live on mainnet, but as I said, this is currently not decentralized in phase 0. We are moving to phase 1 in a matter of weeks. We are already working hard on this, but we are not reinventing the wheel. So we can actually move fast towards phase 1 just because we are getting already audited components that work well for our use case and that can keep the structure of this way thinner. So the idea is, let's keep it simple, let's keep it thin, but let's provide secure, let's design a security model where there is a decentralized network of nodes, yet each node is forced to use a TE so that attacking the network is more expensive than usual. If you want to peg in or peg out or test the process both on mainnet and testnet, we have a DApp at dapp.ptokens.io, and you can easily test the peg in and peg out. At the moment, there are like 5 Bitcoins approximately that have been pegged in, so not many, but we have just launched like few weeks ago. So, I mean, this is sort of expected also because phase 0, as I said, is not yet decentralized. We're getting there quickly, but the current implementation is already providing the trusted execution environment guarantees. I think now I could answer some questions maybe. So let's see the ones you have already asked. What security measures are in place for BBTC? So cryptographic or crypto economic. So as for the crypto economy, there is a system that is similar to the one you find in RAN, if you're familiar. So there is a bond that nodes need to put there, but this is not providing any capping to the network capacity, as trusted computing is also part of the game. So another component is that you can challenge a validator at any time, and the validator needs to be able to prove to you that they are really using a trusted execution environment that is up to date and that according to the attestator is running the correct code, which is something that normally you just don't have because you assume the machine will be compromised. How is different from RAN BTC? Well, there are many differences. One difference is that RAN BTC aims to do much more. For example, they have introduced the RAN VM. They provide some privacy guarantees. They have invented their own NPC algorithm. So we didn't do any of that because we didn't want to reinvent anything new to get special properties. We are using like an NPC algorithm that is already used in the wild by other projects. It has already been audited. We don't want to provide a general purpose virtual machine. We don't want to provide privacy. We want to keep it as thin as possible so that it's easier to audit, it's easier to understand and to battle test. And it can just do one thing and do it well. So this is one difference. Another difference is the capping, as I said, and the use of trusted computing. The DAO we use is on the P network, is not on Ethereum. And yeah, those are the main differences, I would say. Something else is that given the way it's designed, P tokens can be adapted to any network very easily. It's not even depending just on elliptic curves or things like that. It can be used really with any signing algorithm. Most of it is happening off chain. So the on-chain gas cost is very limited, which makes it super attractive for the market makers, for instance. This is like something that I keep stressing because unless there is liquidity, all these systems don't really make sense. And liquidity is something that typically gets there thanks to market makers. And market makers need to have a frictionless peg-in and peg-out process. And they need to be able to do it with costs that can be like predicted, and where the gas cost is not crazy high just to guarantee some extra on-chain security. You can still get security without increasing gas costs significantly for everyone. So that's what we are trying to do with this approach. Let's see if there are other questions.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, two questions actually. If you bridge something, where do you, in what currency do you pay the fee? Is it in the governance token or in the underlying asset? Or?
It's in the governance. It's in the governance token, which is called PNT. But yet, this is a token that is completely invisible to the users of P tokens. You don't need to use it. It's just a governance tool that is used among the validators to distribute the spread that the spread is where they actually get the fee from. So they will need to convert it to the token to distribute it among themselves.
Yeah. And the other question is, it can bridge any ERC20 token also to EOS or Tron or whatever blockchain is out there. But is this listing process, is that permissionless? Can I like bridge every token we want? Like we want to bridge the BTC++, is that possible to bridge it to EOS? Or?
I mean, the code is open source, so anyone will be able to do so. For the EOS code is currently not open source. It will the Ethereum one is. So on the bridge between Bitcoin and Ethereum is open source. The one with between Bitcoin and EOS or Ethereum and EOS is not open source yet. It's being audited right now as we speak. And anyone can run a bridge independently. But if they want to use the network, the P network guarantees and those validators, then they need basically to convince the DAO that they want to adopt that bridge. So this is what happens from phase 1 and phase 2, where basically there is a voting in the DAO where people can propose that, I don't know, they want, for example, BTC++ on EOS, right? So they need to propose it, and there needs to be like a decision taken by the DAO. The validators need to comply with the DAO. So if they don't, they get punished. Yet with phase 0, we are the ones choosing, as we are bootstrapping the network, and basically in the very first phases, we are the only node anyway. So right now it's centralized, way more transparent than usual, but the plan is to move faster towards a decentralized process.
Yeah. Where can we submit a proposal to list an asset?
Sorry, say it again.
Well, if we want to bridge BTC++, can we submit a proposal somewhere?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think
this will be cool.
You will see a proposal coming from us. It sounds really good.
Yeah, thank you.
Chris.
So the validators get paid in the governance tokens, depending on the peg in and the peg out, as someone has just asked. And I want to stress that, I mean, we don't really, something like this has never existed. And while there are so many projects that are trying to do it, we don't know how much liquidity will keep moving in and out. It depends also on the ecosystem. Like if there is a great liquidity in the ecosystem with decentralized exchanges on Ethereum, there may be a very limited need to peg out and go back to Bitcoin. You may just liquidate PBTC on Ethereum. So in that case, you see there is a limited peg out, so there is no fee, and the governance token is not necessarily something that will go up in value. We don't know. So this is why I think it's really critical in our design that like the value of the governance token is not proportional to the capping of the amounts you can handle.
That's great. I think there is one more question, which is, will the P token DAO tokens be distributed?
So this is something on which we will release more details in the coming days. The idea is that basically we are, as a company, Provable Things. I mean, Provable Things has been around. You may know our Oracle service, like Provable. It was used called Oracleize. We have been around since 2014 as an Oracle service, and the idea is that basically the holding group that we are part of already has a token that is currently called the EDO token that is used by a company of the group. And since we don't want to go through the burden of doing another primary offering, we don't want to think, solve the problem that all tokens have, that at the beginning, they are all in the hands of the teams and they are centralized, so they are bad for governance. What we are doing is using a token that internally we already have, and we will basically adapt it so that it can be used here. So we are basically changing an existing token and doing like a pivot so that it can be used for this project. And the reason why we believe this is a very good idea is that first, we don't need additional funding. We don't want to do an ICO. Second, but we need a token for handling this governance stuff. And second, this token is already in the hands of more than 6,000 holders, and it's listed on major exchanges. So the idea is that we just keep that token to inherit the listing, to inherit the user base, and those users will be our first adopters. So we'll have like 6,000 users that are interested already to understand more P tokens and to use them. So that's the plan.
Great. So I think there is one more question still from Scoopy following up on the token question, which is, what do you think liquidity by offering PieDAO tokens as incentives for bonding tokens?
What do you think of bootstrapping liquidity? Yeah, I mean, that's something that we will be doing at the beginning with something that we call the P Network Association. This is something that we are bootstrapping, where any company that is interested just to discuss or share some ideas with people that are integrating, they can participate as members. They don't need to have tokens. They don't need to do anything. Yet we expect the first validators to be someone that maybe is interested and proposes themselves within this framework. So yeah, it's possible that we will be donating some tokens within that framework. So if you are interested, you can reach out to us on Telegram, for instance. We have a P tokens channel, and this is the best place where to stay up to date.
That's great. Thomas, thank you very much for taking the time to presentation with us. I mean, we are excited about the P token solution. I really like the iterative approach of going, step by step with a very lean design. I think that's a good way to go. And then I'm going to speak a little bit more about P tokens in the way we are thinking about using it. So please feel free to stick around. For anyone who wants to also vocalize any of this question, please feel free to talk to them in their Telegram channel or in our forum post for PBTC. We have also some of the P tokens team in our Discord by doing at provable things, I think, or at P tokens. So you can ask direct question through the Discord channel.
Thanks, Alessio, again. Thanks, Alessio, again, for having me here today. And if there is any further question, please ask in those channels.
Great. All right, guys. So I think this was an exciting presentation. Thomas, I'm gonna ask you to close the screen so that I can follow up with another presentation. There you go. Great. Can you guys see my? Say hi if you can. Yes, nice. All right, guys. So what I'm gonna present over here is a small recap of the PBTC proposal. You might have seen this in the one who is not there just yet. Consider joining forum.piedao.org. It's where most of the discussion about allocation are taking place, and it's a great way to stay in the loop with the PieDAO activities. I want to apologize if my connection is going to be a little bit unstable. It hasn't been great for the day. Should be fine, like my pink button says it's fine. So let's jump into it. So what is PBTC? What is BTC++? It's a weighted allocation between the different representation of Bitcoin on the Ethereum network. Now, the reason why we are thinking about that is, as we just learned from Thomas, there are a number of different projects which are working towards bridging the gap between the Bitcoin network and the Ethereum network. Each one of these projects is going for very specific trade-off in terms of security. And we have seen a variety of different approach. Some of these are going for economics system design, some of others are going for a more centralized approach, and so on and so forth. Now, there is a very diverse landscape of these approaches. And even if some of these, assuming that all the assumptions related to economics or the security mechanism are correct, we all know that these projects are extremely new, and then there is risk associated with bugs. So what we're proposing here is basically to create an allocation which uses all of them. So if you are not quite sure what are the nuances of the security model of PBTC against RAN BTC, or if you're for custodian solution, completely custodian solution to the centralized solution, what you can do is to actually get Bitcoin exposure on the Ethereum network by using all of them. There are a number of advantages by doing so, and that's something that we are going to explore. But I first want to say how this might happen. If you recall, in the past two community calls, Mick has been sharing us the technology that he has been building for the Balancer Smart Pool. We think it's a great technology to build something like this on top of. And by the way, don't miss out on the next community call next Friday, where we are going to have Fernando, the CEO of Balancer Protocol, which is going to explain a little bit more the nitty-gritty details of the Balancer Protocol itself. Now, I believe there are a number of benefits for users to use something like BTC++. So if you are one of those users who want to get BTC exposure into the Ethereum network, and you want to somewhat diversify the exposure you have between WBTC, RAN BTC, PBTC, and so on and so forth, without going into a complex or expensive rebalancing procedure, what you can do is to very simply hold PBTC++ tokens, which is basically of the balancer pool, where all the tokens are pulled in order to do so. Plus, there is also another, which is if you're an holder of WBTC, PBTC, or any of the other representation, which are normally sitting idly into your wallet, you can actually make some money which are coming from the trading fees within the pool. So as for now, we only have been seeing ways to basically create passive income through the use of WBTC by doing lending. Fairly different compared to this, and you might always have some other risk associated with it. By joining this pool, instead, you will be able to get trading fees for your idle tokens. Following that, I want to kind of elaborate a little bit more why I think balancer pool are a good choice for doing that. If you're not familiar with the protocol, again, we're gonna have the CEO talking next community call, but very shortly, balancer is a new piece of the DeFi ecosystem, which is gonna come mainnet probably in 1 or 2 weeks. It's a multidimensional automated market making, which means you can create pools with a different amount of tokens within it. It has some improvements compared to stuff like Uniswap version 1, and we are excited about this technology. To some degree, you might say that it's more convenient for liquidity provider that are providing BTC exposure through a variety of different tokens. And the reason is you don't have necessarily to go through, which means that by have a weighted allocation of only BTC token, you're only getting exposure to the BTC price, which you'd be comfortable with. I also truly believe that this is one of the perfect first allocation or pie that can become one of the core asset for future pies. So if we're gonna end up in creating more complex allocation, and there are a number which have been proposed in the forum today, such as IWP++, or others, when we actually need Bitcoin exposure, we can use BTC++ and basically route for whatever trade that needs to get that liquidity from BTC coming from the same pool. Being an asset ecosystem, balancer is also very exciting. And there is a possibility that by acting quickly and claiming the first mover advantage, we might become one of the biggest pool for Bitcoin exposure over there. Now, I've been playing with a couple of hypotheses, as you might have seen to the forum post. So what I'm gonna show over here is one first allocation, which is without synthetic token. Now, this allocation, it's currently based pretty much on the liquidity available for each one of these tokens. Obviously, we know that tokens such as WBTC and IMBTC are completely custodian, and they have some risk associated with them, but they are also very liquid. If I'm correct, right now, WBTC averages out about 800 Bitcoin into the Ethereum network compared to 750 for IMBTC. PBTC is relatively new, as we just learned. They have planned to increase liquidity. So that's part of why their allocation is more than others. At the end of this presentation, I'm also gonna share a very simple Excel similar to the one we've been seeing in previous community call for Cash++, so you can play around and give your feedback. I know there are some fun of synthetic token over here. So I also been, I'm basically making an hypothesis about how an allocation might look like, including synthetic token. I think there are pros and cons about that. And it's where I kind of want to get your feeling in that regard. As long as I'm aware, right now, SBTC from the Synthetics platform is pretty much the only synthetic token which is liquid enough to be used. So I've been working on a different allocation, which basically includes a 20% of C within the pie. About the trade-off of adding synthetic token, we might debate a lot. I still feel like it might be an extremely good thing. It's a liquid token. Synthetics is it's a great project which has been building a great ecosystem. So I see tons of benefits about it. So talk about what they, there might be the use cases for traders within the use of BTC++. There is one easy benefit to understand, which is for arbitrager. So if you are an arbitrator between either DEXers or checks or centralized exchange, and you are basically arbitraging only within Bitcoin, having a pool, all the representation of Bitcoin in the Ethereum network is extremely handy. And then you're still getting exposed only to the price of Bitcoin, which is great. And then it's way easier to do something like that compared to arbitraging, for instance, in Uniswap. Plus, any of the smart contracts which are seeking liquidity for a variety of different use cases, they can go to a single place to get any of the representation of Bitcoin within the Ethereum network, which I think is very interesting. In the future, we might even see people using kind of BTC++ tokenized version to use as collateral, maybe, or something like that. Something that I think it would be extremely exciting, because for the governance mechanism of some of the DAOs or some of the DeFi projects which are looking for assets to collateralize stuff, it's very complex to come into consensus in using one or the other version of Bitcoin. So by using all of them, that might be a no-brainer for them. So we've been debating a few things, but there are some challenges. Mick has been pointing this out into the forum post. One of the challenges that we want to address and we have to address is this idea of adding a circuit breaker. I'm sure Mick can elaborate more there if someone wants to know more about it, but basically what happens following the Uniswap example is making into the forum is that, let's assume, as we just said, like some of these assets might be extremely new and they might be bugged, which means they might fail at some point. Now, if that happens, there are some challenges in making sure that the pool doesn't get drained. I strongly believe that this is exactly the reason why we need basically a social governance layer managing those pools. And that's the perfect use case for PieDAO and stuff like PieDAO to actually behave in that sense. So if you look at the ecosystem of Balancer, you have finalized pool and you have managed pools. So the reason why we want to do a managed pools is that we can always change in the rates. We can always stop trading if necessary, or if we are catching up with something fuzzy going. So that's an additional layer of protection compared to the base layer by itself. A few different solutions have been explored within the forum post. Someone will include, may include insurance, but it looks like also having a confrontation with the Balancer team, that the easiest solution that can be implemented would be to basically implement a bot, which is acting as a monitoring tool and eventually disable trading within the pool if anything fuzzy might happen. I'm also pretty much fascinated by the idea of insurance, and that's something which has been discussed. We've been seeing tons of very incredible projects lately coming out with options or something like Nexus Mutual, Open, and so on and so forth. And that's something I'm excited to explore more. Also, there is hope, as the Balancer team has been sharing with us that they are planning to do a built-in circuit breaker within their code for V2, which will basically fix whatever issue about that. Now, in terms of the more actionable stuff, how the circuit breaker bot might look like. Well, as I was explaining, PieDAO is the manager of the pool, which means it gets to decide whenever trading is enabled or not. It gets to monitor if some funky stuff is happening, for if one of the underlying assets is going bananas. And if that is the case, it can stop trading at any time. So what can happen is the bot might trigger a very similar transaction to what happens in the MakerDAO ecosystem for the emergency shutdown, which is a pre-signed transaction with a huge amount of gas price just to make sure it goes through, that can be triggered at any time if the bot is sensing that something is not right. And then back at that point, the DAO can decide if that was a false positive, and then re-enable trading and nothing happens in that regard, or if there is actually something funky going on, and then decide what to do next. So this is pretty much the benefits for having a managed pool, but it's not the only one. As we've been discussing today, a number of different projects are moving towards the direction of bridging of asset with different security model into the Ethereum network. Thomas was mentioning TBTC, RMBTC. I know someone else was mentioning during the chat. And once these tokens will be ready, one of the benefits of having a managed pool is that we basically restructure the weighting for listing these new tokens so that this pool will actually represent every representation of Bitcoin within the Ethereum network. Assuming we find there is some unpredictable emergency or there is some new risk that we didn't figure out before, again, the DAO can basically interject through governance, change those things. That's again, basically the value of the social layer on top of it. So I also wanna very briefly talk about how can we get there. So in the past community calls, we've been seeing the evolution of the smart contract for the managed pool, which Mick has been presenting. If you missed that, there is a very interesting conversation about storage pattern and all these kind of things, about the underlying stack that you can find in the recording in the forum. Again, forum.piedao.org, feel free to join. So, but in order to get there, we need to audit the smart pool contract. So we are pretty much at a finalized stage or very close to that. And obviously we want to make sure that there is the highest amount of security that we can do. So as long as the community feels comfortable with it, what I'm gonna do is to basically make a follow-up proposal into the forum, and I would like you all to join to ask the PieDAO community to basically fund the auditing of the smart pools. We also want to build a circuit breaker, as I've been debating and discussing just now. And then something which is extremely interesting is to basically think, how do we involve liquidity providers for this kind of product? There is a very good way to get basically some passive income by ordering those tokens. And I've been proposing to have an initial swap fees of Uniswap, and I think it might attract liquidity providers in that regard, but there might be other ways. And that's why I want to kind of community. So following that, I would like to invite you all to basically, we have a great forum post about it when we are debating all the nitty-gritty details, and we have a very active Discord question. And so that's it for me. That's all I got. If anyone has any specific question, I'd like to take them. Otherwise, Cola, because we've been running a little bit long today, and I want to make sure we respect the time.
Sorry, your audio was cutting out there. You were saying the swap fee was going to be what for the balancer pool?
So what? Which is slightly less than what Uniswap does.
Sorry,
and
Mick,
that would be
we lost
complete.
one more time there. Go again.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I was proposing an initial swap fee.
Yeah, it's breaking again. We're proposing an initial swap fee of 0.2, which we might increase to 0.3 after some time.
Yeah, I think like basically the reasoning behind the 0.2 initial fees is that we want to be at 0.3.
So what he was trying to say there is that we would like to eventually add an additional fee to that at an additional 0.1% to go to the DAO. But at the moment, the contracts don't support that, and we don't want to wait on the upgrade in order to launch the product. So we're going to see how everything works with the product to begin with, and then roll out an upgrade, most likely in the near-term future, to have the DAO start to receive a management fee.
for the audio cutting out. Like that's unfortunate. Sorry for the inconvenience, guys.
I'm going to interject and say I actually really like that idea. So liquidity providers will get nice market maker fees to operate the pool, and then once it's up and running and the contracts are updated, then PieDAO will then take a little cut for basically administering this pool.
There is another thing which I think it's important to highlight, which is being a nascent ecosystem, Balancer one. It's very important to take pretty much like first mover advantage and become the biggest liquidity pool into that ecosystem. I think that will be extremely beneficial because of the way the smart routing system works. Is that if there is enough, then anybody else who is basically trading and looking for liquidity in Bitcoin might go through that pool, pretty much increasing everyone.
Are there any incentives being thought about for bootstrapping the initial liquidity?
Yeah, that's something that we've been discussing a little bit, and I'm happy to explore more. So, I really like the idea of the DAO being a liquidity provider or creating an incentive program to provide liquidity. That's something that we have been slightly touching also into the synthetics Discord about maybe doing a joint incentive mechanism like SNX/DAO or something like that.
Oh,
a
that
lot
would
we
be
can play around. Yeah, I think that would be very interesting. I kind of want to make sure that we get the product done first, and then we can really focus on a number of activities to boost basically market makers to join as liquidity providers.
excellent.
Is there any other question? Otherwise, we move along. Sorry again about the audio cutting off. I'm going to try to fix it for next week. But really, the infrastructure over here is getting crazy. Almost, I think, 99% of the people being most in quarantine are connected to the internet. Okay, there seems to be no further question. So I'd like and share your presentation.
So it's me, Ale. Sorry, your audio cut again, right?
Yes, it's you. Please go.
So, can you see my screen?
Yes, indeed.
Yes, we can.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, it's gonna be, I think, no longer than 5 minutes. And so this is the first time I do this little presentation. We call it design showcase. And I'll be trying to do it regularly. And okay, let's get to it. So DAO token icon and Pi tokens. So we've been discussing on the forum about how to represent the DAO token. The token is PieDAO governance token, and after about a week-long discussion on the forum, and taking in account many of the feedback, I came out with this. We did design, and we recently approved, so I'm pretty happy about it. And these are various versions that we can use in different contexts and different background. And these are instead the token that represent some of the Pi allocation we were mentioning before. In this case, it will be the Cash++ and BTC++. And the idea here is that we are gonna have this, like we will consistently use this this design as a template where we change basically just the content inside, but we will keep the colorful outline that is already in our brand. And we are also working on updating the PieDAO.org website, and one of the components that we are designing right now are the product cards. Basically, when you go on the website, you will have a little display of what are the available products and yeah, little explanation. Then if you want to go into detail, you just can click on the card and go inside. Again, we are using this colorful background that has been all over our brand already. And again, on the PieDAO.org website, we also redesigned the hero. Oh, sorry, someone wrote. No. And yeah, I use for this open source library provided by this great designer. Is called Pablo Stanley. He's a designer at Envision, and it's a library where you can customize these little figures. And so this is a preview of our new hero. And that we are going to use it also for other social elements, such as the Twitter cover. Here in 2 different versions. And then I've been working on a case study idea of a millennial investing app that we can build on top of PieDAO, basically with the tone of voice and UX that reflects more what are the trends into like recent fintech and like millennial applications in general. And like I did some research. Here is a mood board of other products that I was checking out because just because of visual style or like interactions that I found interesting. There is a bunch of very well-known products such Robinhood or Cash App, but also something that is not necessarily fintech, but as a visual style or UX that I was inspired by. And I did a little analysis of architecture information architecture, and basically putting together all the information and interaction that I think they should be included and divided into like necessary. In the yellow you will have the nice to have but this will be more or less what I would like to include inside the app in terms of information and interactions. And some of these cards, they are already kind of possible screens, and this will be instead secondary information and interactions. All these slides anyway, like I'm putting them together into an article that probably will end up in a forum post or in a Medium article, so you can check them out later. And this is anyway a work in progress. Probably I'm gonna be presenting again next week once it's finished. And then I started to think about what will be the most common flow for the app. And in my opinion, like aside from the first time user that need to be onboarded, then the main touch points are gonna be the portfolio page. If you already have invested, obviously you can check the breakdown and the performance of the portfolio, or a discovery section where like user can check among selected investment opportunities and use basically. And I started to sketch write the discovery screen, because in my opinion it's pretty, I mean, it's first touch point, and it's also very information dense. So I sketched different kind of layout showing more or less the same elements. Some are included, some are not in some of the layouts, but yeah, it's more like a different layout. And I picked the one that, in my opinion, had the best ratio between like information density and visual balance. And I designed these three versions here. And yeah, this is pretty much it for this week. If you have any question, or if you want me to share some of these screens even before I put them on the article, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Nicola. I think this is great. I think we really like the idea of ending up having like a decentralized Robinhood app, which is giving in a completely DeFi fashion these kind of opportunities. I think that's great. So, I mean, this is outstanding work. I always love your design. Does anybody has any question regarding that?
Yeah, just to finish, I mean, like now the only thing you're seeing designed is mobile, but the idea is to obviously to have also a web version. So, just to clarify.
I have a question. What do you guys have against Android? It's always an iPhone all the time with you guys.
Who's that? Who's that?
Mark, how are you guys?
You need to ask the designer, man.
For the record, I have a Galaxy S10 Plus and have long ago gotten rid of my iPhone, and even gave our designer a Pixel 2 that I had as my backup phone, so that he would have the ability to take a look at our various apps on there and make sure that they don't look like shit. So I'm very much in your court. I don't understand why we're iPhone centric.
I confirm nothing against Android. For this showcase, I just downloaded some iPhone mockup because they are easy to find, and they also look really. But no worries, nothing against Android.
Yeah, for the private joke, it was like a reference to Dex Wallet and the constant wait for the Android support that never come.
Yeah. By the way, Mark, are you feeling better?
Yeah, much better. So I got the mild version. So I'm kind of lucky, as most of the HCC attendees, I guess. So good for us.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
By the way, guys, I hear if you ask Alessio in DM once a week when the Android wallet's coming out, it'll come out faster. So
that's already happening too much. No, but that being said, yeah, thank you, Nicola, for sharing this. I think it's really great. And then if anybody wants to collaborate on the design, feel free to reach out to Nicola. He's always available through our Discord channel and or through the forum. So moving on, I think we have Gab right now. So as you guys might have seen into the forum, into the Discord channel, a few people have been basically discussing the idea of starting a mock index competition or a mock portfolio competition to test out your own assumption portfolio. It was a fascinating idea because we can pretty much make some kind of competition or leaderboard about whatever portfolios are working best, test them out for like 2 or 3 months, and then eventually come to conclusion. So Gab has been working on a way to facilitate that process, and I'm going to leave the word to him right now.
Yeah, hi everybody. Hopefully the connection won't be lagging too much. So just in a couple of minutes, as Alessio introduced, so basically following the suggestion to kind of put together a mock index initiative, I would say like mock buy initiative, we thought that actually would be a very good idea and would be kind of handy to have a sort of template. Of course, Excel is the most, let's say, straightforward tool to be used to leverage on this. So what we put together is nothing that a simplified version of, basically allowing everybody to select a short a set of tickers of assets to be included within the Pi. So basically, just by inputting those simple, kind of information, such as start date of the let me say the portfolio creation, the ending date, investment balance, and here actually I highlight all the inputs in this kind of yellowish to make it easier. So simply by selecting the ticker, would be the one calling up data through Google Finance and allocating the weight of these different assets. All the rest is basically calculated through Excel. So it's pulling all sort of data for this period under consideration, and it's making a bunch of calculation in background, and you get some, I would say, like handy graphs, such as indicated total return. Then you can have like a splitting by different assets. I can maybe show you just very, very quickly, even though we're running a bit out of time, but I don't know, for instance, this was actually inspired, some may work on, is actually the inspiration of the all-weather portfolio by Ray Dalio. We just changed a bit the weighting and ending up some crypto assets, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum for the case. But of course, everybody could just decide to go and change this as per they will. So for instance, here I just decided to add up like a random 1% with Tesla, but I can just make it with oil, and it may take a bit since unfortunately my connection is not very fast today. But so that's pretty much it. Everything that user could be should be doing in order to simulate and backtest a proposed Pi is just compiling those subsets in yellow, and pretty much being able to put together to have like, I would say, condensed overview of what this hypothetical portfolio may look like and perform like. So of course, this template, we're going to share it on the forum, and please feel free to let me know whether you need any kind of support in or additional explanation, or you may just want to fork it and just move it from there on, adding different source of data. Feel free to do that, of course. So yeah, that's pretty it. I hope this might be something useful for everybody to like start brainstorming, like raising possible Pi allocation. Yep.
Well, thank you very much, Gab. I know a lot of work has been put into that, and I think this is going to be an extremely handy tool for everyone to basically fork the template and coming out with their own allocation. I see people excited into the chat. For anyone who actually want to use this Excel, is going to be embedded both into the Discord post, but also into the recap of this community call. So it's free for everyone to use. And if someone has some ideas about improvement, obviously feel free to do that and vocalize them. Gab, is there anything else that we need to see in terms of the other sheets? Is that something that we should touch within the Excel, or?
Well, actually, it's just background stuff. So basically here we have the data source from Google Finance. We have some post elaboration of everything. We come up with like AUMs for different, assets, and we calculate returns. So it's just really some background stuff. So feel free to go and explore as much as you want. But pretty much all the input and then the result is over here. Of course, you may decide just to have 3 assets. Okay, and but I'm gonna commenting out how to better use these inputs. And again, otherwise, feel free just to let me know, and glad to answer.
All right, thank you very much. So guys, before we wrap this up, I'd like to basically share, as you might remember, we have been starting a meme competition for the PieDAO 1.5 weeks ago, I think. Like, we are almost about to complete the new week. So I kind of wanted to share where we are at with that. I'm gonna show my screen again real quick. Hopefully it doesn't break down.
Like someone created a meme for the competition about Alessio's shitty internet.
Yeah, I think there is one like for this week. Like so, we're gonna see it at the next community call. But just to make a quick reminder, the meme competition is very simple. Like there is a 1K of DAO token which have been given as a prize for the best meme, plus 2K of additional grand prize for the best meme over a month. The rules to qualify are extremely simple. You have to post your meme on Twitter and on Discord. You need to use the right hashtags, hashtag pirates, DeFi, and DAO. And then the calculations are super simple in terms of one retweet is 1 point and one like is 0.5 point. Now, without further ado, I'm actually gonna click on this link over here. It's been a fairly tight competition so far. So as you might see, I don't know if you are here with us right now, but New Normal Earth is the winner of this week, of the past week competition, with the first video meme, I think, that ever came out. He actually tried a number of times. So congrats for the assist. I think it's very nice. I actually like some others more, but I think it's fascinating. So thank you very much for participating. I kind of make this graphic New Normal winner of the first week. If you're listening to us, please say hi. Otherwise, I'm gonna reach out on Twitter to you so that you can make clear how to receive the prize. That being said, guys, I kind of wanna also make sure you understand that it looks like he's gonna win also the second week competition. So if you wanna jump into that, you should do it now. And I think so you can get some sweet dough for yourself. That being said, we have been running a little bit out of time today, a few minutes more. Guys, feel free to stay updated into the Discord, into the forum. If you have interest in collaborating on BTC++ or signal your support, Nicola is gonna share the Twitter header so that you can talk about it and then vocalize why you think it's great, why you think something should change, and so on and so forth. For a more in-depth discussion, please use the forum. Otherwise, I'm gonna see you all next week, Friday, 3 p.m. UTC for everyone for the next community call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, folks.
See you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.